If closed off and unaware was a person, that was me and I was she. Honestly, I was so closed off and I had no idea. I had some idea, but really, I mean, I knew I had, traumatic experiences, but I didn't ever really want to think about them. So I didn't know those were things that were affecting my day to day. And we will get into those as we have this conversation. I, um, I was thinking, should we just have lighter conversations to start? But whenever I was talking to God about like this channel, and one of the things that I felt like the reason we're here is to have these deep, honest conversations. And as much as we really hate to talk about these things and we we feel uncomfortable, that's the more reason why we should have these honest, open, deep conversations. And I keep saying deep because these are deep things. These are not things that we typically talk about in the African community or in the open. It's like we've had a general consensus not to talk about these things. Anyways, I am Ashley Kusianga, and let's get into it. Okay, so you may be wondering, what are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about sexual assault. Have I been sexually assaulted? Yes. Does it keep me up at night? Not as much as it used to. Do I get triggered? Not as much as I used to. Were there times when I got triggered a lot? Yes. Okay. So, what is sexual assault? I'll read the definition. Okay. So, sexual assault is referred to as sexual contact or behavior that occurs without explicit consent of the victim, of the person that was assaulted. All right. I what do you do when somebody, your child, your friend, your sister, your brother, comes to you and tells you, I was sexually assaulted by X, Y, and Z, or I have been sexually assaulted. Many times, parents make the mistake of saying, why did you wear that short skirt? Or why do you always put on exposed clothes? It's not a big deal. It happens to everybody. Um, Another thing that they can say is, I told you not to go around X, Y, and Z. Another thing they can say is, what will people say if we were to talk about this, if we were to act on this? So let's just pretend it did not happen. Or what would you do if you were to find out like years later this was something that had happened to your child in your childhood? Or this was something that happened to someone that you care about when you were around? The thing is, we don't have to go far to think about these things because these are things that happen in our community so often. And these are things that we do not talk about because there's a shame around it. And there is discomfort. We don't want to get uncomfortable, but we need to be uncomfortable to actually get comfortable in talking about this because it's alarming. I'm not gonna lie to you. The number of sexually assaulted victims I have encountered that are African, it is so crazy. I don't know that many people, but if in the number of people I have met or encountered, and we've been able to have these deep conversations, and I have found out like a lot more people than I thought are experiencing this, then this is a big issue that we need to delve into as a community. And I know, yes, it's uncomfortable. That's actually the more reason why we have to talk about these things. I was talking about the approach or what we say when somebody comes to us and they tell us these things. Do you know the mistake that a lot of people make is sometimes they feel like they have to say the right thing or they have to make you feel better. That's not your that's not what you should be preoccupied with in that moment. In that moment, what you should do is just be there for that person, listen to them, empathize with them. You don't need to say anything but for I love you. I am truly sorry that this happened to you. What can I do to help you in this? That is all that is needed, or some variation of it. That's all you need, honestly. You don't need to start telling the person or start going and say, let the person help the person feel safe with you. The person expressed their vulnerability to you. It takes a lot, especially for us as Africans. First of all, they don't even know they're going to be bereaved. They don't know if you're going to, how you're going to respond. So just take a second, take a deep breath. Many times we want to help by talking too much. Listen and ask them, how can I show up for you in this moment? How can I be there? How can I help you? What do you need? It's not about you. It's not about how it's making you feel. Yes, you're going to get into that later. Yes, you're going to figure those things out so you can be better, so you can better equipped and able to be of more help down the line. But for now, in the moment someone is telling you about your experience, you just need to be present and listen and let them know that they did the best thing they could do coming to you, and you're going to be there for them. It's not a time for all the questions, it's not a time to interrogate them. Those first moments, it sets the foundation of how they can better go into more detail and how they can feel safe with you. It's very important. And the truth is, we do some of those things ignorantly. We're not sure of how to respond, so we just start talking and start saying things are irrelevant. But no, what that person needs from you is for you to listen and for you to be there and for you to provide them that security that they did not make a mistake expressing this to you. I told you, I was so closed off and so unaware, right? That these are all coping mechanisms from things that you don't want to even think about, from things you don't want to deal with. Honestly, one of the things I used to do is I don't even know if I did this on purpose. It was probably like a defense mechanism where I I didn't I would not date as a young person. I wasn't uninterested in dating. I mean, there was a time I didn't know if I liked boys, but I mean, but I wasn't uninterested per se in it's evident that I like boys. That's why now they're saying I wasn't uninterested in boys per se. I mean, yeah, There's a time when I didn't think so, honestly. But it was more of like I would date, I would be in relationships or I will be in relationships that I know will not last. Maybe it's somebody I liked, but I will push them on another person, right? And then keep going in with like being their friend, but having feelings for them where I know, okay, this will not go anywhere. Personally, I'm not going to, but I would, I would, like you have feelings for me, but I will push you on to somebody else if another person likes you, and then I will stay your friend. We're being honest here because I know I'm not going to go get in the mix of that, but I have these feelings for you. So I am getting some emotional I'm feeling some emotional gap by keeping you in my life, but not going all the way, which is not fair to either parties. I didn't know. I mean, in hindsight now, I'm seeing how that worked, and these were all methods for me to cope. And if I don't do that, then I will be in a relationship long distance because I know we're going to talk, we're going to do, but I would not date someone in the same space as me. That was all what like before my husband. That was all like I did. So it was like feeling an emotional void, but not committing to it or not even trying to go all the way. Those were things that I did to cope. I remember there was a time when a guy would want to a male, it did not matter who you were. You would want to hold me or touch me, and it's like I will go cold. I will tremble in like, oof. It was so bad. It was really horrible. Like those were the things that I would, yeah. Now I talk about it and I'm smiling, and there's still times when some certain things, like if I hear people's stories, or I would, it like takes me back a little. But what I'm doing now is I realize, you know what? Come far, extremely far. Like even with my husband, like I struggled. I did not know, and I still struggle with that. Like to receive love is hard for me. It's truly hard. So these are some of the things that it's difficult to love me. I'm very simple, but it's like my head keeps spinning. I keep thinking that, oh, maybe there's a motive. I keep thinking like that's how it has messed up my brain. However, I'm so happy that I can acknowledge these things and I recognize these things so that I'm better able to, you know, not let these experiences take any more from me, and it has brought me here where I can express and explain how it made me feel, and how I'm coping through this, which could better help you, which could better motivate you to know that you're not alone, and to know that it's okay to seek help. It's okay to go to therapy. I'm not saying share your experience with everybody, because you know what? Some people are really nasty out here in these streets. However, don't keep it all bottled inside. Talk about it. And a burden shared, you know what that's saying when we say problem shared is half solved. I don't think this will be half solved, but there's going to be some relief, and it helps you to start healing, start processing, and eventually get healed, to get to a space where, yes, this was a very sucky experience that happened. However, and I keep saying this, as long as we have breath in the lungs, there's always room to do better and be better. So it's not the end of it. We don't have to keep going through life just managing. There's so much life that God has given us to live, and it's up to us to choose it, and with His help, right? Because promise, honestly, I don't like the peace I feel now. Nothing else gave me that but for me getting closer to God and me knowing that it did not happen to me, it happened for me. God is making everything work together for my good because I love Him and that's just what it is. So that's where I have found my solace, that's where I found comfort, and that's where I have found peace. There are days when it really gets really oof, where traumatic experience have a way of just coming back, but it doesn't take me out as much as it used to. Um, Truthfully, honestly, it's all because of God. And then the strength He's given me to keep going. I'm going to say this. I know based on our last video, we talk about like family and relationships. If you are a parent, I promise you, there's some conversations you have to have with your child. But let's focus on the fact that something like this has already happened, or you're not hoping for something like this. But parents need to acquire skills and tools to be equipped that when if a child, your child or another person, we all need tools. We all need to know like what do I say in this type of situations? Honestly, our prayer is this doesn't ever happen. But what if this has happened? How do I respond? By watching videos, by reading up on stuff, getting equipped so that you're able to handle it. And what I have really noticed is people who hurt people. You've heard that saying. And it could be unintentional. But if you are a parent and your child tells you, for example, they've been abused, if you have been abused and you haven't dealt with that abuse, then when your child tells you, it's like throwing it in your face and you don't know how to respond. First of all, you possibly feel guilty that, oh my gosh, this happened to me. Or maybe you did it to somebody, I don't know. And I did not protect my child, or you feel like, I don't want to deal with this, I don't want to get into it because what if this ruins relationships that I currently have? But what about your child? What about facing your own trauma? Because that's important. We cannot keep going about life just ignoring things and expecting to live a full life. Honestly, that will not happen. So we need to develop the courage and the strength to face up to our trauma so they're not dictating how our lives go, and it helps us to better show up for our loved ones. It's truly very vital and important. I'm not forcing you. This is not to force you or to shame you. Honestly, very far from it. I'm just saying that, and it is the truth. if you don't if you keep ignoring things, you're just sweeping it under the rug. It's something going to pile up and you can't cover it anymore. And I would say the first step is, if you've been abused and your child comes to you, or your child or somebody that you care about tells you about you, take yourself out of it. If you don't want to deal with yours, at least try to take yourself out of it. So that self-awareness is important. Sometimes you don't even want to admit the fact that you're abused. So it's like, who are you to even like be talking about those things? Who are you to even, just be like, oh, I would like, why are you admitting those? Why are you bringing out these things in the open? These things are supposed to be shielded, covered up. That's the African misconception. We're not supposed to talk about these things. These are taboo topics. If this happened to you, you're not the first person. And yeah, just take it to your grave, for lack of a better word. That is absolute rubbish. Honestly, we shouldn't have to live in fear. We shouldn't have to just swallow things up and just go with the flow. That's our culture, and those are things that we really need to change, because it doesn't just affect that person, it affects how they show up for your kids and other people in the world. It affects how they love. It affects every aspect. Affects how safe and secure you feel. It affects when you get married, if you're going to trust your partner. It, like, you might think, oh, it's just like one thing, but it's one thing that has such a ripple effect, because you are unable to trust yourself, you're unable to share your feelings, you're unable to feel safe within yourself. So if we just feel like, you know what, you don't have to do it, no, we have to deal with those things. We have to talk about them so people feel less alone, so people are able to seek help, so people are able to feel loved, safe. Those are all very vital components to living a full life. I'm not going to sit here and lie that there are no generational differences. The way these things were handled in the past and the way that we know to better handle them now are different. Okay? I'm not going to sit here and think that it's going to be an automatic switch. I would be lying to myself. I know it will not be that, right? However, I do know that there's things that we can do, there's changes, little changes that we can make, just like doing research, just like watching things like this, just like equipping ourselves, like doing the hard work to equip ourselves to know that these things actually are impacting our community in a very large scale than we care to admit at present. There are people who have been hurt and have died that haven't dealt with it, and somebody will say, what happened to those people have two heads? You know what, we don't care if those people had two heads or not. What I do know is they could have had a life so different than what they had if they had the knowledge that we currently have the opportunity to possess, to seek. So it is up to us. It is it is our responsibility to choose that life, because we're so exposed to more knowledge and information that could change the course of our lives and give us more fulfilling and better lives, rather than being all strung up and just angry all the time, possibly, or just hurt. And you can't even just live a full life because you don't even know that these are the things that are stopping you. These are your defense. Because the way the body works, the way the mind works, the mind remembers. That's why even when I would not admit my trauma, my body remembers, and there's that defense that's already there. Where when somebody wants to touch me, I shiver. I'm scared. So if we don't face up to those things, it's not just gonna go away like we're hoping it to. So whenever approaching people who are not as informed, are not equipped, we have to give them grace. And we need to work on ourselves first, so that whenever we're encountering these people, we're coming from a place, we're coming with at least a half full cup. Because if you go with an empty cup, expecting for it to be filled by someone who doesn't even know how to fill it, that's going to be a problem. There are those differences. However, there's a way we can bridge those differences by talking to each other. There is a way we can bridge those differences. We need to learn how to protect our children. We need to learn how to protect our siblings. We need to, of course, when they're younger. The responsibility is not on the brother or the sister. I just mean, if you're older and you know certain things, seriously, we need to talk. We need to encourage each other. We need to seek knowledge. We need to show up for each other as a community, as a family. Because even if it's not your child, even if, honestly, these things don't hide. when a child is being hurt, it shows. There are things, there are signs, and this is where the third video comes into play. If you have a relationship with your child, you will know when they start acting different. Your child will feel safe enough to share certain things with you, and this is not a jab if you don't have that relationship or if you did not. It is a way for us to learn and to do better. So I am not trying to guilt anybody. I am not trying to make you feel like, you didn't do a good job. That's far from it. But how can we do better than we did before? That's our mandate. If you didn't do good and you know to do better, now we have to do better. Honestly. So even if we have to be aware. These are things that happen in our society, in our communities. It doesn't matter where. I'm talking about the African community, be it back in our different African countries, be it abroad in any European or in the United States. It happens. We want to protect each other. We want to be accountable, want to hold each other accountable by making it clear, crystal clear, that these are not things that we will allow, these are not things that we will tolerate. Because the more we bury ourselves in this silence, it almost feels like we're saying, you know what, it's okay for these things to happen. Do you think it's okay for a child to be molested by an auntie, by an uncle, by a father, by a mother, by a brother, a sister, a cousin, a distant relative? It is not okay. So why are we not talking about it? Why are we so scared to talk about it? Why are we so scared to address it? Why are we so scared? I think we're scared because the things that will become uncovered in the process it's making us uncomfortable. But this is not about us. Like we said, we're building a legacy for all Africans, the ones that are here now and the ones that are coming after us. We have to do better as a community, and that's just facts. So this is not for you to feel like, oh, she's trying to make us feel bad. I'm sorry if you feel bad. However, it is pushing you to do better. We need to encourage kids to speak up. And how we do that is being responsive when they come to us, creating an environment that fosters love, safety, security, that fosters honesty and openness and trust. So when you go have conversations with your children, make them know, have conversations with your parents, have conversations with your siblings, have conversations with your cousins, have conversations that don't necessarily are like where people, it doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, this happened to me. But what these conversations have to be had in the sense where we talk about things like sexual assault, not necessarily because they happen to somebody, but these are like things that actually do happen. We talk about these things because when people feel like, these are actually topics that can be talked about, then when it happens to them, they don't feel isolated. They don't feel like, oh, I cannot bring this up because it's going to bring shame to me. Everybody's going to be looking at me different or things like that. When we make it known in our circles, in our families, in our communities, that you know what, these are educative topics that we need to talk about. These are things that we have to be talking about like a community, to the young ones, and things like educating people, educating parents, educating grandparents, depending on who the caregiver of that child is. Then we are really able to create that sense of openness, trust, where kids can be able to have those conversations, where people can bring those things up. Because I bet you there is a 60-year-old watching this right now that is remembering something that happened to them when they were 9, 4, I don't know, 4, I don't know if you can remember, or 20 something, 30 something, 40 something. It could be anybody. Because this is things that have happened that we have gone so long without addressing, without talking about it. This is not about um uh, just this is not an attack on men, because there are women who molest people too. This is not an attack on a specific gender or anything. This is an appeal to all of us to make it clear that we can talk about these things, as uncomfortable and as on yeah, it makes you feel like that, but we need to talk about them, because our kids need to feel safe. They need to know that they can, like, your families are that place where they feel safe, where they can bring anything to their parents and they will not feel shunned. Because again, like we said, the, the family is a foundation. So when I say parents, I'm talking about the caregiver. If you're an auntie taking care of a child, if you're an uncle taking care of a child, you've taken on that child as your own, as your responsibility. If you're a sister taking care of your younger ones, when I say parent, it means in our community, a parent is someone who is a caregiver for that child. So if you are a parent, it is your responsibility to foster that environment that provides safety, openness, honesty, trust, where kids can feel safe and secure to come to you with anything. Ideally, create a relationship with them so that you can know when anything is off, so that you can help them face it, so that we can even prevent these things before they start happening. Thank you so much for being here. I love you so much for watching this and for, being willing for us to have these conversations. And I hope to see you on the next video. I know I will see you on the next video 1 week from today. Thank you.